Okay, welcome to the public scoping meeting for the Upper Sevier River Watershed PlanEA project. It is April 17th, 2024. We're here today to go over the Upper Sevier Watershed Plan EA, what the actions are going to be, who the team members are. So we've got the project sponsor, the rest of the team. We'll have Kyle Wheeler here provide an overview of the NRCS's PL 566 program, which is where we're getting the funding. We'll present the purpose and the proposed actions of the various aspects of this project. And we want to inform the public on how to provide scoping comments on the project. So we do have letters or pieces of paper in the back that you can fill out and then mail to myself, and the address is on that piece of paper there or on that letter. And then the last thing we're going to do is have a roundtable. We're going to open it up for discussion. Any questions from the public or agencies all are welcome. So the lead agency for this project is going to be the U.S. Department of Agriculture, specifically the NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We were able to get a local sponsor, and that's going to be Garfield County. They have a lot of input into the various aspects of this project. They're helping us design various things, give us valuable input. So here's the project team. For the NRCS, we have Kyle Wheeler with us today. Jason Dodds is the project engineer. He's actually online. We have Joshua Breger and Tara Hoffman with the NRCS. We do have Wally Dodds in the building, though he's not in the room here with us right now. He's with the Utah Department of Agriculture. Dave Dodds is on assignment elsewhere, so unfortunately he was not able to join us tonight. Hal Gordon is going to be our economic analyst. Then for the engineering and design, we've got Alpha Engineering represented by Brent Gardner and Glenn Carnahan. And then they'll have Mr. Brandon Horrocks handling some of the engineering aspects. And then for the environmental, myself, Jake Norland, the project manager. We have Sarah Galindo, assistant project manager, not with us today, unfortunately. Mr. Ron Bolander, he's going to be our NEPA specialist, and he's being helped by Jacob Herrera, who's online. Jacob is our NEPA planner, and he's online going through all of the comments, making sure that they get recorded and put into the public record, as well as answer any questions that he is able to answer online. And then our archaeologist is not present with us right now, but she is Ms. Jen Bannock. So that's the project team. There are others that have various roles and responsibilities, but this is the primary team for now. I'm going to turn it over to Kyle Wheeler. He's just going to provide a short overview of what the PL 566 program is.
Yeah, I'm Kyle with NRCS. I'll just give a brief overview of the PL 566. It's a funded program from the USDA. It was started back in the 50s. We built a lot of dams and those kind of things back in those days. It's been refunded now. It has many purposes, eligible purposes that we can. It's a watershed-based program that we look at a big watershed. Usually try to keep it under 250,000 acres. There's lots of purposes as far as flood protection, watershed protection, ag and water management, fish and wildlife, habitat, recreation, water supply. These are all things under this program that are eligible. We provide lots of different services. We do a lot of dams, pipelines, restoration type work. It's just a bigger, broader program that the NRCS is involved with, and that's the project or the funding source for this watershed plan EA. It's led by local NRCS. Like Jacob said, there's Jason and I. We are local. I'm the planner. He's the engineer over this. We are the lead agencies. We obviously sponsor is Garfield County. We We send letters out to other agencies to be co-sponsors or to be part of the EA process, just to make sure we're following, everybody's policy and we're in line with that. So that's a pretty brief overview of the PO 566 program. So.
Yeah. Were you gonna speak on the background or was it gonna be Jason?
It was going to be, not me.
Okay. Hey, Jason, are you able to share a little bit about the project background by chance?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me all right?
We sure can.
All right. So, in 1980, the West Penguich Irrigation Company modernized their water distribution for farms and homes by replacing the old canals with underground pipelines. Over the last 40 years, there's been some of those ditches that weren't completed at that time have been added to the system. Currently we have challenges. Number one is it's 40-year-old system. It's showing signs of wear. There's low pressure almost every July. It feels like a lot of demand pressure. The pipelines, a lot of the farmers and ranchers are starting to see metal flakes in their nozzles. We've had some pipeline breaks and things like that as well. To start this project off, there was a feasibility study conducted to show which upgrades were kind of slam dunk, what needed to be done, which portion of West Penguich irrigation we were going to deal with, so that we could move this project forward. So the main purpose of this project is irrigation water management. Beyond the water, we also looked at some other opportunities. We know that Penguich developed a little walking trail heading up the Penguich Lake Road. We'd really like to tie that project into some other trails. We're looking at some alternatives to run a bike path clear out to Red Canyon and tie into the bike path up there. And we're also going to do a watershed master plan for the Sevier River. The Sevier River is just a really integral part of Penguich and the upper Sevier watershed. We want to protect that. We want to reduce erosion. We want to reduce sediment supply to the reservoirs downstream, which is very expensive to remove. And we want to protect our watershed as far as, the banks eroding and things like that. So, the visions for the future, we want secure water for farming, ranching, and the community. We want to be able to upgrade the system in town if needed as well. We want to protect our river, the upper Sevier watershed as well. And then we want to improve the community by adding the recreational features as well. I go to that next slide.
The next slide will show the map.
So here's a map of what we're looking at doing. You can see that we've got Penguich City right here. We've got a couple trail alternatives that go out. One is going along Highway 89 and up the Red Canyon Road, which is Highway 12. Another one would be out taking that trail out Casto Canyon. And there's a few alternatives of how to get it back to Penguich. So we'd also like to tie in the walking trail that goes to Penguich right now, that goes up the Penguich Lake Road, take it out on the south end of town and tie it back to Highway 89 so that that's more of a loop instead of just a up and back type road. A lot of the, proposed pipelines have been added here. It's mostly the system on the south end of town where we have the pressure problems. And then we're going to look at the pipes and sizing through town as well. One thing that's been added recently is just taking that pipeline or that open canal that runs on the west side of town and piping that out to, we'll figure out how far out we want to go with it, but just to be able to conserve that water as well and reduce flooding opportunities. That's another thing we want to work on. Any questions or comments on that?
I think there will be a time, Jason, at the end of our presentation for questions and comments. So thank you. As Jason stated very clearly, there is definitely going to be a need, or there presently is a need for this project or for these upgrades to occur. You can't be having metal shavings in your irrigation water. That wouldn't be ideal for any livestock or just putting that into the fields. Additionally, the bike trails are going to be a great additional recreational feature for the citizens of this community. So the need is there. The purpose was clearly stated. So let's get into some of the resources that need to be considered through the NEPA process. So clearly, everything on there is going to be considered. We've been having meetings after meetings discussing our plan of attack regarding air quality, from cultural resources to the wetlands. We've got floodplains, federal and state sensitive species and their associated habitats, environmental pollution and hazards, public health and safety, soil resources, invasive species, water, definitely land use and recreation, and then brought on health for economic and social considerations. A lot to analyze as we go through this process. Now, you may be wondering how long this process usually takes. Well, we have an 18-month time limit, so we have to get moving. And I think, started this back in January, so that makes the rest of this like 13 months long, not a whole lot of time left. We are here where the star is. You can see on the left-hand side, resource evaluation, preparing the draft EA. So that's going to be taking place this spring and into the summer. We're going to have boots on the ground out there in the project areas, analyzing the area for cultural resources, biological resources, that kind of stuff. Boots on the ground work. And on the right-hand side, for the NEPA process, you can see behind the scenes that we've been developing project purpose and need, which Jason alluded to earlier. We're conducting the agency and public scoping process right now. This is the public scoping meeting. We're collecting baseline data from the various agencies that are out there. And we also are collecting and we'll begin analyzing alternate data for the alternate routes as well. But from there on, we've got our agency review on the left-hand side, public comment period in the winter, and decision document in the winter and into the spring of 2025. Moving further down, you've got your final design, looking somewhere in the year 2025 or 26, and then project construction, and that's where the dirt work begins, 2026. All goes well. But on the right-hand side, NEPA will end not in 2026, but a little bit before that with the decision document. We're expecting to find a finding or issue a finding of no significant impact. So kind of what we're expecting right now.
Can I add something really fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the planning process is what we're in right now, and it's kind of a 4-step process. Jason alluded to a preliminary investigation. That's to see if it's feasible. Then it goes to the EA. That's what we're doing now. It's a 1.5-year deal. Then it goes to design. It's the next step after that. And then after that, it's the next step is construction. It's basically in 4 different steps. So that's obviously the step in right now is planning and PlanEA. So
thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that feasibility study was a couple of years long, 2 or 3 years.
Feasibility only takes 3 or 4 months usually. So
that was back in what, 2020 or 2021, I think, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when it was done, but.
Was there public involvement in the feasibility study, or how does that work?
No, the feasibility study is an internal decision made by the NRCS. The idea is to make sure that there's a project that meets NRCS goals and purpose and need. The irrigation company gave us some information. The whole point is to use existing information and data to make sure that we're not chasing our tails when we start this long planning process. So it's called a PIFR. The preliminary investigation feasibility study is only like a 3-month study using existing data and a lot less public involvement. Once we get to the NEPA stage is where we pull the public in to get their input.
That public scoping comment period started April 3rd when we mailed out some letters to the different agencies that will have that should have an impact or should have a say in the matter. We have this public scoping meeting here. We have the comment letters in the back. So we encourage everyone that's in attendance, either in person or online, to fill those out and share those comments and make that a public record. So all comments are going to be recorded. So we'll have that to help us make our decisions as we move forward. Good time for this. How to comment. So official scoping comments are to be submitted via comment card, letter, or email to the following. That's my name right there, Using Environmental Group, the company I work for. If you want to send a comment card or letter, that's the address. 1745 South Alma School Road, Suite 220 in Phoenix, Arizona. That's our Mesa office. If you'd rather email comments, you can email them to me, Jay Norland, at eocene, spelled EOCENE.com. There should be pre-addressed comment cards that are readily available to be downloaded from the NRCS project planning website. So if you just Google Upper Sevier Watershed Management Plan EA, one of those terms, some of those terms, some combination of them, you should be able to find the website and get that comment card. Comments may also be provided during the Q&A session after this presentation, which starts right now. All right. What questions or comments does the public have? Jacob, are there any comments online?
No comments or questions so far online. Any virtual attendees, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A.
Questions from the audience?
Am I the only public there?
No, well, Denny was here, but he left. Denny left.
You're a very important person.
So this can be informal from here on out. If you want to come up and take a look at the maps, we've got 3 different maps up here for you, a couple of the trails, some of the irrigation system. Any questions that you have, any comments that you'd like to make, go right ahead.
My concerns, Jake Shoppy, my name. First was just to make sure I get on your scoping list, because I had to find out from a friend. So I think there's a lot of people that don't know about your process right now. Right. I didn't know. I work out with all every morning. But my concern.
Asked me about it in the gym.
I know,
like
I
a
found out
month
the
ago.
paper. So my concern is, my property. I irrigate out of the canal and I flood irrigate. So I've spent a bunch of money on cleaning a pond and ditches and that sort of thing, and how this process will affect me. What that blue line on the top, that part of the alternative proposal, how it'll affect me. Once you get in the pipe, how will I get my water?
Great question.
And what's my cost gonna be? Is if it costs me a lot more than just opening the gate right now, then how do I afford to put everything in pipe and get to that stage?
Brent, Glenn, are you able to shed light on what that looks like?
I know that the water will be available to pressurize the system, which would be an on-farm irrigation system. And the NRCS has funding available. I think is it Kyle, is it 50% grant?
It's generally around that amount, yes.
And then you can put in-kind labor. So if you put the pipes in and that type of thing, that counts as part of the cost of the system. And so the NRCS has funding available to put on farm irrigation systems to be able to go pressurized.
And that's a possibility, but where there's been water diversions before, you'll be able to access your water again, as well, so.
So how does that work on a pressurized pipe? When I open the gate, you lose pressure in the system, right? So.
Yeah.
Well,
How will that work?
Jake, you're absolutely right. The canal company, when we, from there down to the Smith Pond, if we required 10 second feet of water, it costs us about 20 second feet to get it there.
Right.
So we're losing approximately half to 60% of our water in transpiration, evapotranspiration,
Get it.
and leakage. So the canal company is definitely trying to go to a complete pressurized system. So the answer to your question is you're probably gonna have to go to a pressurized system.
So that forces
You're
the
gonna have
cost,
to
forces
go.
the cost on every water user.
Well, most of them are already pressurized, but there's maybe 3 or 4 that aren't. The same with that canal that we have, that ditch that goes around to the cemetery. It's worse. It's about 3 to 1 that we're losing. We're losing about 3/4 of, 2/3 of our water to go around and supply
And they're all like me, they're flooding.
2 people. So basically, it's a cost and benefit analysis to the whole company. And it sucks for a few people, and it's going to. But, we have a responsibility to all of our stockholders, to save water, to be good stewards of that water. And, as a company and as a board, we feel like there's so, and not to minimize your, what you're doing, but so few people and so few acres that we have left in a flood system that we're gonna push everybody to pressurized irrigation and we.
So that tells
We
me
have the right to do that.
there's not a range of alternatives or decisions already made, right?
No,
That's how it sounds, kind of.
so I was
No,
just
no,
gonna
no.
mention,
I'm just saying, how it sounds to me.
so I think it's a great concern that we need to bring up and take note of. During the engineering, that portion we're talking about has been added recently, so we really don't have a lot of data or information at this point to know how pressurized that pipe is. If it's going to be a pressurized, high pressure pipe or a low pressure. There's a ton of alternatives to be able to get water. And again, once we get that data, we're not sure how high up the stream we're going to pipe it, but we're just starting to work through all the alternatives. So I think that your concern is valid. I think we need to get it entered in as a concern. And then once we work through alternatives, then we can present that information to you at a better time. Right now, we don't even know where that pipeline's going to end. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if I remember,
Jake. Sorry, I'm speaking like as a person that's on the board of the canal company, not my
And
job or
It
not.
could be the best thing in the
Not
world for me. I
this.
don't know. If I
Right.
can go apply
Do you
for,
come out of that pond?
that's how I get it now.
That's how you get it out of the
There's
pond?
an old ditch, so Alan Henry's father had a lot of ditch structures up there, there's potential to use other ditch structures to get to me. And I get it, I'm just
Right,
a small guy, but I think there'll be other people, once they figure out what's going on, that'll have similar concerns. And like I said, it may be the best thing in the world if I can go apply for a grant and use my labor and everything else. The other concern I have, and I don't know Wally or Jason or whoever is to get to my place, you have to cross some other private landowner. And so then you're dealing with easements and all those other things. Will they be covered through this analysis? Or is that gonna be, I gotta go beg from my neighbor to get a pipeline across to get it to me? How does that work?
no, and that's at this point, again, we're going to develop some alternatives and look at some options. But at this point, we're working through the easements that are existing that the irrigation company has. And that pipeline goes to a certain point, and then I think we've talked about a few different ending spots. There's a couple different ponds along there, but then it's an open discharge into a pond. So this is something that the irrigation, that actually the NRCS has been dealing with in the upper watershed. Wally as the watershed coordinator, we've done a ton of these projects for years and years. And so working with landowners and getting easements and getting through properties, something we're real comfortable with. But the thing you got to realize is we're going to take it to a point. And then the other thing that a lot of these projects set up is that we've done in the past, and Utah NRCS is really big on, is setting up a strategic fund pool moving forward. So when we put in these PL 566, we look at doing a strategic fund pool, which would give these projects under this system a higher priority when it comes to dealing with the NRCS on the farm bill side. So those are ways we're going to kind of mitigate those concerns moving forward. As far as easements, again, where the pipeline goes for the PL 566, that is something we're going to deal with and work through. It feels like the question you're talking is more from the ditch down to your property. Is that right, Jake?
Well, that's one of my questions is somewhere, everybody who farms like me has to get it from their canal through somebody else's property to their place.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means for West Panguitch irrigation, if that's an implied easement to get your water to you, because it's been there all those years.
Most of them have an easement, which may be their ditch, or, if you have a ditch, you've got an easement. So, we have to get a permission to install from a landowner. But if they have a ditch, they already, that is your easement. And then we just have to, if we're getting an NRCS contract, have to get a permission to install from them, which normally isn't a big deal because they want to get rid of the ditch anyway, because it's just running through their property. But
yeah,
but that's case by case too, Jake. I'm not speaking as, a blanket, but, and I don't know with the engineering, I mean, where you might have a lot of pressure and, we were talking today that we're probably gonna have to daylight a couple of places anyway. And I don't know, there's gonna be some people on the system that we would hope we can get water to, a different way. So they're all things that, yeah.
Based on my experience in Kanab, we had half the people that wanted to stay flood irrigation. And as they saw everybody else on pressurized watering throughout the year and everything through the year, everybody's converted now. I had a lot of enemies, but now I go into town, some of the older people over there just say it's the best thing that ever happened to them, but it costs money, you're right. But the water goes further, you keep green and you're not as much labor intensive as flood irrigation, I don't think, depending on the type of sprinkler irrigation system you put in.
You may not have to pull that dead calf out of the ditch.
And that's a huge problem, that we have with the south fields. I mean, we only got about 50% when we first converted over the Henrys, everything the Henrys down, that they just weren't gonna do it, and then every year we have somebody else.
And I'm not doubting the need for the
Right,
project.
no, I know you're
I'm
not.
just looking at my little world and
right.
so how's this gonna end up for me?
Right.
And this is sort of outside the scope of your comment here or process, but back to you guys, at least this other program you go and apply for and they'll cover 50-60% or whatever. Do they help you with the design and the pressures and all, like figuring that out?
Yeah,
Or how does that work?
Yeah, they have engineers that design that for you, yes. It's part of it.
Yeah.
What Jason was
So
talking about, yes. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, that's the nice thing about, again, that strategic fund pool that we'll look at applying for after, or once we get further along with this project. NRCS pays 100% of the engineering design. They have technical people like Kyle that will go out and do a conservation plan. And then an engineer like me would come in and do the engineering design. So you'll have a really good system when you're done. And the technical assistance is not, it's free. And then, they go into a cost share and they're saying 50 or 60%. And that's just a generality. The way they pay is per unit. And so, if you put in 5 feet of pipe, they pay you, I'm making up numbers, but it would be $5, right? $1 per foot. And so it generally comes out to that 50 or 60% cost share rate. But again, that's going to be quite a ways down the road. I think that they're good questions to bring up so that the engineering company is thinking about it, is how are we going to get people water out of this pipeline? Like you're saying, Jake, great points. How do we get, if we're going to stay with a flood irrigation, is it possible to get them their water if they want to go, or are we going to force them into a pressurized irrigation system? Those are all good points. So we'll take notes of those and include them as part of our planning process for sure.
But for people along the system, whether you've got 100 shares or whether you have 1 share, there's still an obligation to get them their water, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The company has an obligation to get every single person their water, whether you have 1 share or 1,000 shares. There's no question. We have an obligation to deliver water to every stockholder in the company. And we work very hard and take it very serious. I think, Jake, like when I look at that, just kind of in my mind, there's only 3 people, I think, on that whole system going down your way that are still flooding. There's Bob and Justin and you, and
There's more than
maybe we
3.
can look something out.
Like out there, Doc Mooney, he just added a whole piece in and got a grant to put a pasture in and start watering his place. So he just invested in the infrastructure. So,
Right. Yeah.
So that's my thing. As I've invested money, Alan doesn't clean that pond, I clean that pond, and so you put money into a system and then you end up, okay, we're going to change, we're going to put money in a different, and I get where this is going. The cultural aspect of it, you had your categories up there.
Mhm.
For me, you got economic and social. I guess that will play into that as the economic impact to all of us. Culturally, I think, do you consider the fact that, like you said, 50% of the people wanted to stay on flood irrigation?
I think the cultural resources on this are the,
Like archaeological.
Archaeological taste, yes.
So you don't look at cultural the other way. Yeah.
I guess we see culture as far as flood irrigation too.
Well, my boys would argue that their culture was growing up setting dams and running a shovel.
Yeah.
Not turning on the risers. I think that's all the questions I have, but.
We appreciate you showing up.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing.
How
It
does-
sounds like there's some infrastructure that's in place there that could, if people didn't want to jump on right now, and we're looking at the main line that we could put water into a pond and you could take your turn out of a pond. I mean, there's going to be a lot of options that we're going to look at.
And I don't know as part of the process. I mean, if I knew up front an idea on cost, it may not be an issue, right? It's like, if you're gonna pay 50-60%, and it's gonna cost me 10 grand, that's one thing, but if you're gonna pay 50-60%, it's gonna cost me 50 grand, that's a whole different number. So
Right.
those are the things that's going through my head, guys.
Do you know Christy and that local officer? I would go visit with her and just kind of might help get you an idea what that might cost and might help.
They'll do that.
Those kind of.
Yeah, cause if you know how many acres, she probably has a pretty good idea what,
Oh, yeah.
they've done enough systems that they can tell you about what cost per acre is.
Mostly it's the cost of the pipe.
Sure.
And digging it in. So is there a project area for the watershed analysis there? I know you're going across. I think of a watershed and I think, well, everything on this side drains to the Sevier River, but then you put your trail over on the other side, so you're accounting for that part of that watershed. Is there an actual boundary or project area, or how do they look at this for how far do you look out when you're looking at your NEPA here?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, so Jason, how many acres were in the map that we created? For the
Yeah,
pit?
I'll have to look it up, but there's two different questions there, Jake. So number one is the watershed boundary. And the watershed boundary goes clear up. It incorporates like Hatch, and then we're actually took it clear down to the mouth of Circleville Canyon.
It's huge.
It's a giant. It's called again. We set up a watershed so we can do these plans within them, and then we look at we try to expand our horizons and scope to look and see what are the contributing factors to the issues we're dealing with. So again, in this case, the pipeline, the NEPA is done on the pipeline alignments that are proposed, and the walking path alignments that are proposed, and the Sevier River system. And the watershed master plan is slightly different because we're actually not going to be looking at implementation factors quite as much. It's more of a plan, so we have more continuity when we're implementing those projects. We have some funding sources that are already in place. But the NEPA is going to be done to a point on alternative routes that have been identified. And then the preferred alternative is even going to get a higher review, because the hope is that we're going to implement these projects along the preferred alternative. That answer your question?
Yeah, it's an EA or an EIS?
Yeah.
At this point, it's an EA. So kind of the break off there is the $25 million mark. Once we go over $25 million, it becomes an EIS automatically.
So it's a dollar factor, not a significance factor that plays in.
Yeah, there could be some significant factors if we had a ton of pushback, if we had some, if it was highly controversial, it could go into an EIS. But at this point, we feel like we have pretty good support. A lot of the pipeline alignments are already existing. The walking path is new. But we're going to try to, how the NEPA works. Avoid is the best option. And then if we can't avoid, then we'll look at some other alternatives. But we just don't foresee this being a highly controversial NEPA.
Thank you.
Jacob, are there any comments on mine?
No, sir. Nothing so far.
Made it way too easy on you guys. Wow. One guy shows up.
Well, and I guess that was one of the questions, you'd mentioned that you didn't feel like there was good outreach. I think that there were mailers sent out and then posters hung up, and it was in the newspaper twice, I believe. Once or twice. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 times.
Twice.
So you mailed it to everybody that's got a water share?
No, we did not. We mailed it out to the agencies. So, I think
People that have water shares ought to know.
I agree.
Yeah,
Oh.
but it went out to people like my boss got it in his post office box. He said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And that's how I found out about it. But they don't always catch the paper every week. But if you have water shares and you're irrigating at it, you probably ought to know.
Very good point.
Put that in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah, the next one will make sure all water stockholders we could have our secretary do
And
that.
I would think about 90-something% of them are gonna be
Pretty easy. Yeah,
but
right.
well, thanks for the cookie.
Take a couple on the way out.
Okay, so I don't need to write all that down. You got it recorded, or do you want it written down?
If you could write it down, please, that would be fabulous. We do have this audio recording, but I'm not sure if that's going to be able to make it into the record.
If I send it in, then
It's in.
if you have a scope, any other stuff you send out, I'll get a copy. Is that how that works? Or how does that work?
It'll be available for the public. I don't think you're gonna get mailed a copy though.
But as you work through a range of alternatives, there'll be another, is there another chance to comment or? look at
There's
that?
gonna be another comment period. That is when the EA is written. Yes, and you'll be able to read through all of the alternatives, the analysis, the preferred routes, or the preferred actions. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for all your hard work, guys.
Alrighty. Jacob, I think we're going to end this meeting, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.